Have you ever wondered about life's biggest questions? Like, why am I here? What happens when we die? Or what else is out there? Well, we have, and we love to talk about it. And if you're listening, we think you probably do too. I'm Robin.
And I'm Karen. And we've spent our lives searching for those answers, and we're seekers just like you.
We'll be talking to some of the most fascinating spiritual teachers, healers, and scientists, and showing you how you can use some of their spiritual practices for yourself.
We'll also be sharing stories of other seekers to motivate you to live your fullest life.
And we'll be translating it all, so the spiritual stuff won't feel so out there.
So if you're curious, get ready to rediscover why we're here together.
We're so looking forward to introducing you to author Steve Hoffman. He's a fellow seeker, and he had his own spiritual transformation. In his new book, Clear Vessels, he's sharing his personal story and the process that has helped him tap into universal wisdom and live a joyful and guided life.
If you've ever questioned the meaning of life or faced seemingly unrelenting challenges, this may be just what you need to hear. Steve knows the power we all have within us. Now you need to know too.
When there's good energy, it just always flows, as you talk about in your book, which I really love. It's a guide, and you will, like, someone will use this over and over and go like, okay, I want to look at that meditation, or I need some inspiration for my affirmation, and I love that you share all of that in there.
I'm hoping it brings some practicality. So many people think that spiritual stuff is woo-woo.
Well, and I also love how each chapter is just like its own little thought. To Robin's point earlier, you can skip all over. You can just pick a chapter that calls to you. And it's almost like it's its own little unit.
I'm glad to hear that, because those are my favorite books that I keep on my nightstand with highlighting all over them.
Yes.
This could be one of those. I'm kind of new to this whole industry, and you two have much experience, so I'm very honored and flattered with your words. So the encouragement is very appreciated.
We can all relate to your story, because I think we're all seekers looking for that little spark of a sign from the other side. And I think that that's really where your story started.
Could you have ever imagined becoming an author and talking about spirituality in your lifetime?
Coming from the financial industry, no less.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think, us seekers always, at least for me, you always felt a little different, a little alone. I had no idea any of this would come to fruition. I grew up in a household with dad had his own business and was a workaholic, and we were Catholic. So it was all about working hard, and if you didn't work hard, you felt guilty. And that recipe worked for the first 20 years in life. I got good grades. Teachers loved me as a good athlete just because I outworked people. And then I got a good job, got married, had kids. So on the surface, I was painting this nice facade that everyone on the outside thought I was successful. But in hindsight, it wasn't as successful as I was painting it to be. And then when my wife divorced me, it kind of pulled the rug out from under me. And it's like I felt naked. It's like everyone can see the failure and fraud that I am. And that's how I felt. I felt like a fraud and a failure. But I was working my ass off to please other people. I was doing the best I could. So one night I just yelled out to God. I said, I've done everything you've asked. Just tell me what the frickin' rules are and I'll do them. I got a little whisper of a thought that night that just said, we need you. I didn't believe it enough at the time because I hadn't had enough experiences like that. A few months down the road, I move out of town. I just needed to get away from the divorce. And I go out to a state park. Coincidentally, it was named Hoffman Hills State Park. And I go out there, and it's late November, and I had the whole place to myself. It's like 1,000 acres. This thought starts coming to me. It says, look for the sign. And once again, I'm a financial type, analytical. My brain's always moving. And so I'm like, okay, is this just another random thought or whatever? But I'll play along. I'd see all these meaningless little state park signs. And I started to give up on it. And then finally, I get to the very end, and there's this big observation tower. There's this big brown sign with gold letters on it. And I'm reading it anxiously, like, here's got to be the message, the important message they've been telling me about. And there was nothing. And then the voice was, call it a voice, but it's just kind of your own thoughts is what it feels like to me. And it said, look at the sign. So I looked down, and there's this plaque, and one of the contributors was a person with the last name Hoffman's -God love. And immediately I interpreted that as God loves Hoffman. That's probably the pivotal point in my life. For once, I knew I wasn't alone. I had evidence. I was just overwhelmed with joy. And of course, my faith exploded. And then I started to listen more. I started to get more messages. And then, of course, signs start popping up everywhere. And they're there all the time. If we can quiet our mind enough, get out of our head, get into our heart.
I want to ask about the elders. When you refer to the elders, what does that mean to you? Is that a group of spiritual people? Like just for those who haven't read the book yet.
Exactly. And I think talking about how you met Holly, who introduced you to the elders, like how did you become open to that? And then I think as Karen was saying, like, what does that mean? Who are they?
So I bumped into Holly at a university bookstore in Minneapolis, and she's doing free readings, and she gave me some very valuable information. We live several hours apart, so after that, we'd either do phone call readings or I'd just email her questions. And the elders, in her description, I think, are a kind of a collective consciousness. It reminds me a lot of Abraham Hicks. So I asked Holly one time, are the elders Abraham? Is it the same? No, it feels like a different energy to her. It feels like they're different rays coming out of the same sun, whether it's God workers or spirit guides or what. They're similar, but she said the energy feels different. So, they tell you things that you did not say to anyone else other than yourself. Maybe you think you're doing something in a great way, but you have a sliver of doubt in your head. They know where that sliver of doubt is. I don't know who they are, what they are, but whatever they're doing, it's good stuff.
Well, and Holly's channeling them.
Holly's channeling them, yep.
What was it about her first reading that validated for you that she was really channeling the elders and that message was for you?
The information was so dead on and crisp and clear. And you walk away saying, how did you know that? No one knows that. About every 6 months, I would reach out to her, as soon as you come across a life struggle and you're like, how do I navigate this? So over the course of 3 or 4 years, they taught me how to navigate so many obstacles and to think better. And then you start practicing what they tell you and you see the results. And life is just so much more enjoyable, and you're going with the flow. You're not fighting. Life just became peaceful, joyful. You just know there's good things happening all around you and they're all lined up. It just changed my way of life. Hopefully you can sense it in my voice. I'm not depressed, contemplating suicide anymore. I'm like, life is fun. This is what it's supposed to be like.
You had read Robert Schwartz's book, Your Soul's Plan, and had reached out to one of the people that he uses, one of the intuitives that he uses in the book. Her name's Stacey Wells. Had you reached out to her prior to meeting Holly?
Yeah, so that was an important step along the way. I read Robert Schwartz's book and I loved it. Robert Schwartz goes into these pre-birth plans and past lives, and it really confirmed to me that there's a plan to all of this. And so I reached out to Stacey, who helped with the book, and Stacey did a past life regression. And it was fascinating to me because the big takeaway was, here I talked about how divorce was, in my mind, the worst thing in my life. It made me contemplate suicide. It made me throw away my whole belief system. And Stacey said, oh, no, that marriage was never meant to last. I'm like, what? If I would have known that, think how more easily I would have navigated through that. But the fascinating thing Stacey told me was that in a past life, I had spotted my son from this life with my wife from this life. He was out on a picnic with her, and I got very jealous. So I spotted him on a hillside having a picnic, and I got jealous and went and rammed a sword through my son's heart, killed him. I'm like, boom, I was a killer?
Wow.
And so you learn to have more compassion and not judge other people for what they're going through. But then those two, in their soul contract with me, came back, and my wife said, I'll give you a chance to handle this better. We're going to get married and we'll get divorced. And I won't give you all the messy details, but I'm going to give you another chance to handle that lesson better. And we're going to have a son. We're going to give that guy back his life that I killed. So you're like, wow, here I was thinking that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then there's this great cosmic plan lined up all for my benefit. So it's the greatest gift I ever received.
What a gift from that past life regression. Oh my gosh. And then if you look back, right, and you look back to where you were looking at that sign, you never would have gotten to that sign and seen the sign if all of that hadn't happened with your wife. So in a way, it was a blessing that that relationship did end when it did, because now it's opened your whole life up to the experience now that you want to have, which is more about the book and teaching others.
If we would surrender a little bit earlier, we wouldn't have to go through all that pain and whatnot. Then it becomes easy and joyful, and you're living in the flow. We just got to give up our hard-headedness and listen a little earlier.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah, then life hits us in the face.
then there's that human part of us, right? That comes into play, which is, part of the journey for sure. Once you start to understand these different tools and different concepts, I think life can definitely be more joyous, and you will learn how to handle the bad stuff in a different way.
Well, yeah. And when the tragedy happens or the really tough thing happens, it's always going to be really tough. But you can at least in the back of your mind say, okay, there's something here for me to learn. There's something.
You look at it differently.
Exactly.
So the name of your book is called Clear Vessels. What does clear mean to you? And what do you want people to know about being clear?
Well, there's a quote I love from Hafiz. He's a 14th century poet. It goes, "I am a hole in a flute through which God's breath flows. Listen to the music." That gives a visualization for what being a clear vessel is. Our job is to be a clear hole for the breath to go through and make beautiful music. Our job is not to blow the air through. It's not to move the fingers in perfect harmony. We don't have to do all that work. We just have to be clear. And when I say be clear, I mean be clear of self-doubt, fear. Probably the biggest plug in the whole of flute, I think, is a lack of self-love. I think when we grow up, as I did, trying to please the outside world, and maybe you don't succeed as well as you think you should, you start to label yourself a failure. Without self-love, this world just doesn't go around for us. Another point about becoming a clear vessel is, we talked about meditation, and I tried to put dozens of tricks in the book, but here's one trick I've learned with meditation. When I try to do it, my head is always sitting there. Am I doing it right? I'm breathing, I'm following this, but is anything happening? So I've learned, I call it giving the dog a bone. Your mind always has to think it's doing something. Have you ever noticed when you're driving down the highway, maybe a long straight highway for hours, and your mind is focused on the road, but it's not that challenging, and you kind of get in this quiet zone and you don't know what it is, but after a 2-hour drive, you're like, God, that felt really good. You were in that quiet meditational zone. To me, it's been a very effective tool for getting into that clear space. So you give your dog a bone over here, and then this wisdom comes in through the back door, and the dog's not guarding the door anymore.
Robin and I talk about just taking a shower sometimes can do that, right?
Yes.
That's why a lot of inspiration tends to come because it's like the only time when you can't have a device in front of you or a person talking to you. It's your own little space for 10 minutes to be able to let all of that thought come through and that inspiration come through. And because your mind is quiet and clear, like a clear vessel, like you're saying, there's that opportunity for the universe to go, oh my gosh, I'm going to stick a thought in Karen's head that she'll remember.
So in the book, there's really two parts. First half's all about clearing and becoming a clear vessel. And if you just do that, your life will change. You'll start to allow this wisdom and love to come through you. But the second half of the book is creating. And that's where, we've taken the mind out of the picture to become clear. We'll download plenty of thoughts from the universe or God or spirit guides, but we can also work with affirmations and start to plant positive thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the creative part where it gets more fun to play around once all that clearing work is done. So that's what I mean by a clear vessel.
Yes. Well, and then can you talk about how you define ego? Because I think people who are listening may have read about ego in other places, but I think everyone defines it a little bit differently. And I really appreciated your definition.
There's probably a more academic definition out there that I just think it's our busy mind that thinks it's running our lives and it's defending itself. It's trying to earn love and approval.
You can differentiate between what the ego is telling you and what your true inner voice is telling you. And I think it's kind of learning to differentiate that part, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, wow. That's just like when I was on that path, the God love story path, and I was getting voices. Okay, what's my thought? What's their thought? And I think it comes back to the feelings again. What feels good? Does that thought feel good? If it does, go with it. If it doesn't, if it feels like work or effort or ickiness, it's probably not an inspired thought.
I always say, it's the child within is usually that should be your guide, right? It's what makes you feel joyful and free and easy. And when you start to hear the voice of the adult, that's probably the voice of the ego saying, well, no, you shouldn't do that. you shouldn't think that. That's always my differentiator between the two. Talk a little bit about being in the flow and being out of flow, because that was another big theme of the book. And I love that analogy and how it goes with the clear vessel. It feels like water and just ease.
Notice when things are flowing easily and when you're fighting them. And then, of course, feel it. Are you paddling against the current or with the current? So you'll just learn to know what that feeling is like. And then you learn to trust it more. Not only trust it, you learn to trust it so much that you know this is the right path. You learn to trust the inside feelings and ignore so much what the outside world is saying to you.
I keep visualizing like the idea of the row, row, row your boat song, gently down the stream, where it's like the universe is sort of the river, right? That's kind of helping you along. I mean, you can still row your boat. I mean, you still have free will to kind of row it the way you want it to go, but rowing down the stream is a much easier job than trying to row up the stream. Going in the flow, it's just like the universe is just kind of carrying you along versus fighting the flow and just trying to go back up.
Whether you paddle against the current or not, you're going to end up downstream at your destination. So you're right. Yeah, if you want to paddle against the current for a while, go ahead. Take a detour. It's all good, but you're always going to end up where you're supposed to. So might as well enjoy the ride and throw the paddle away if you want. You'll still get there.
Well, and you use meditations and visualizations and affirmations in your life, and then you talk about them and actually really show how to use them in your book. Can you talk a little bit about each of those and how you incorporate them into your life?
Affirmations, I mentioned a powerful phrase is I am this, I am that. There's subconsciously those things start to stick in your head. So affirmations are great. Visualizations I find to be even more fun, because what I found is all you have to do is find a feeling. You don't have to find specifics. You don't have to say this is the specific house and the specific spouse and the specific car I need. If you do that, I find you kind of limit the universe or God from delivering. Maybe they have something better. If I do ask for, I love this beautiful house, I'll finish it with, or something even better. I would love this job, or something even better. If you find the feeling of anything, the universe will do its best to match it. So in the book, I talk about the one example where I'm hitting a home run out of the baseball park and it just flies farther than any ball has ever flown. And I just picture the crowd cheering and my teammates are just like in disbelief. Was I really trying to become a Major League Baseball player and hit a home run? No, I was just feeling that everyone was just like in awe of what happened. That is just a fun way to go through your life. Daydreaming is another word for it. Daydreaming is very powerful. At lunchtime, I go out to a quiet little place and I have a folder full of readings or quotes or just things that move me in a positive manner. Maybe I'll read 1 or 2 or 10, whatever gets me into a good feeling mode. And then I'll just sit there and soak it up. And I'm like, I feel so good right now. I don't need anything. I don't care what happens. I just feel good. And that's when miracles start to happen. People might think that's an exaggeration, but it's true. Miracles are all around us, and we just have to be open to them.
It's like my mom always used to say, what you focus on grows. And that could be a good thing.
That's right.
Right.
That's
it's just what you focus on. And focus is a tough word too. You don't even it doesn't have to be a focus. I love your idea of daydreaming and just allowing your mind to go to a place that makes it just feel good. And that's what's going to attract the good back.
Along those lines, probably the most powerful thing I learned from Abraham Hicks is the technique of pivoting. Something bad pops up in your face or in your life and it gets your attention. I mean, it's hard not for your brain to cling onto that. Maybe someone insults you and you're like, like you said, if you focus on that, it's just going to make you more angry. So you pivot and say, I don't like that. So what do I like? Just flip the situation so your focus goes elsewhere. That takes a lot of practice, I found.
It's true. As another Abraham thing is always like reach for the thought that feels better, right? So if I'm angry, maybe I can just reach for a little bit of annoyance instead, just try to like that. If you can't pivot, just like try to get yourself to a slightly better thinking thought. And that lines you up for a better outcome too.
Yeah, what I use is I kind of have this emotional spectrum. 1, you feel lousy, 10, you feel great. And what if you wake up feeling like a 2 or 3? Maybe you're angry. Find something to just give you a little bit of relief. If you get in a habit of practicing, maybe you go from a 3 to a 4 each morning. Well, pretty soon you start waking up at a 4, and then you go from a 4 to a 5, and you get good at changing your feelings. And then the momentum doesn't stop there. You just keep going up the emotional spectrum. And good thoughts start flying in. So
talking about visualizations, but you can apply that same idea to affirmations, right? Like it's the feeling you get every time you say, I am blank, or I am, just I am. That's powerful in itself. Like, what's that feeling? Because once you figure out who you are, that in itself is powerful, right? So I think it's that same thought of feeling, attaching that to visualizations, affirmations. And then when you're in a meditation, what's that feeling? So it's like that kind of ends up bridging all of these different concepts.
Right. And then, the book provides a lot of tools, but what it's really designed to is like you're talking about, find the tools that work for you. They're going to present themselves. I loved your I am comment. There's one part in the book where I have a whole page of I am healthy, I'm abundant, I'm creative. It kind of winds down at the end to I am love and I am loving. And at the end, it's just I am. I am encompasses all of that.
I know the first time we talked to you, and this actually really stuck with me, which was like you talked about your drive in the morning and how you were able to kind of rev up your happy machine. I know sometimes I need that. Some days I wake up and I'm rearing to go, and other days it is just a slow crawl. And I am grateful. I say it every day, but some days I'm happier than others. And I loved listening to how you get yourself going. Can you talk about that?
If you pay attention, the world gives you signs. So I was driving to work and I was looking at this huge radio tower, and the thought just came, I don't need to climb that whole thing today. I just need to climb one rung. So pay attention. They're giving you all these little tricks and signs that will help you.
You have some great quotes in the book. So I would recommend everybody look at those quotes because they will definitely act as inspiration.
Hopefully it brings a lot of practicality to people's lives and things they can actually do. 3 big takeaways for me, if I had to summarize it. 1, we are never alone. We always have help and guides. They're all knowing, they're loving. The other thing is vibrations really work. No matter how you get there, how you make yourself feel better, whether it's visualizations, affirmations, going for a walk, or sometimes if you're angry, just accepting that. Just say, you know what, today I feel kind of angry, and that's okay. The other thing is life's more about ease, not effort. Learn to go with the flow. And then kind of to encapsulate all of that, I think the key word in my life is awareness. That's what we're really trying to foster here by becoming a clear vessel, becoming aware of your thoughts, the thoughts that are coming to you, the guided messages, the signs, the tools, the miracles. Life is pretty miraculous when you look around. Awareness is the word and the thing I want to get across to readers, except for maybe there's one other thing I would leave readers with, and that's hopefully the ones that are wondering if life is worth living. Hope. We all have doubts. We all have fears. We all don't feel worthy sometimes. Have enough hope. Stick with it. Pay attention. Become clear. Become aware. Life slowly starts to communicate with you and become more easily to navigate. That's kind of my 15-year transformation from thinking suicidal thoughts to sitting here talking to you about a book. And I just hope this can help people get there in a much quicker fashion than it took me.
Well, I can just speak for me. I'm listening to you thinking, I wish you could hear yourself right now and how proud your higher self is of you. Don't you just wish sometimes you could go back and talk to that Steve who was going out on that walk and just show him where you are today and the words that you're saying and that you're inspiring so many people with. And now you're giving this gift of this book and this experience back to so many people. I mean, I'm just sitting here just proud of everything that you shared.
And there's no coincidence. There's no doubt that this was all part of your soul contract and that your soul knew you had this all in you. You had to kind of hit that rock bottom in order to have this awakening.
Yeah, I think it was planned out. I've been told I've wanted to be a bringer of knowledge. I talk about ego in the book, where if you realize that it's God's breath flowing through you, it's hard to have an ego when you know that I by myself can do nothing. You remain humble, a humble servant, and it's an honor to be able to be in that position. You feel grateful.
Yeah. And I love what you said too about hope, because this year for everybody, no matter where you are in the world, that's been challenged. And so having faith and having resources and having awareness is what's going to get us through.
And, just like you are doing with your show, you're you're sharing wisdom, and it looks like you're enjoying yourself too. So
I am. I feel so grateful. I know. I feel how you described. I feel great. I know Karen and I both feel so grateful. We get to be a vehicle and a channel to help people have hope.
Yep, it's better than anything you could have imagined. So
Totally.
Well, and just the benefit of people hearing this conversation right now, I think is so important. There aren't a lot of these conversations going on, right? And I think having this opportunity for you to have this book of simple tools, that's what Robin and I keep going back to all the time. Keep it simple. Give me the rules, universe, as you were saying before, right? Simple things that you can do. 5 minutes of meditation, just having a positive thought, going for a walk.
it's not woo-woo stuff. It's practical living.
Exactly.
Why don't they teach us this when we're young?
Well, and that's why I know for me, I share all of it with my daughter who's 12, and all of this helps her. It does get her through some of the more trying times of just growing up. Well, and you're going to give us also a meditation, right? We're going to do this relax and allow meditation so that everybody can experience a little bit of peace and awareness right now.
This is a meditation that came to me my last day on Aruba. At the end of the trip, I was just sitting at the beach. I saw the waves crashing in, and these waves have been here forever. They just keep coming nonstop. That's much like the abundance that's available to us. It's always there. We just allow it. So here's meditation that I downloaded that day. Close your eyes and pretend you're laying on a warm sandy beach, and you're just enough in the water so the full weight of your body is not pressed against the sand. You're feeling light. Your shoulder blades are touching the sand. You see the warm light filtering through your eyelids, even though they're closed. You can still taste a little bit of salt on your lips. And you're enjoying just the sun and the warm sand and the water. And there's a gentle wave that keeps coming from the right to your left. So as you take a big breath of air and fill your lungs, you start to float. Your bottom and your shoulders come off the water. And as you take this inhale and begin to float, you say to yourself, relax. And you enjoy that floating lightness. Then as you exhale, you say to yourself, allow. And as you do that, the gentle wave from the right is gradually pushing you from right to left down the beach. You keep repeating that, feeling that lightness, letting the waves take you where they need to go, where you need to go. All you have to do is relax and allow, and the universe is going to take you exactly where you need to be. There's no need to fight, no need to swim. You just need to enjoy the sun, the sand, the water. Simply by relaxing and allowing, you're getting exactly where you need to go. And now in the future, you can simply say to yourself, relax and allow as you inhale and exhale, to give yourself a very shortcut version wherever you're at, to revisit that feeling of what allowing and surrendering feels like. That's the end.
That's so powerful.
I was there. That was a wonderful affirmation. Like, that's my favorite thing to do, is just float on the water.
And it's so easy.
Yeah, it is.
That's what I'm really working on in my life right now. Even when I get in the flow, my head tries to take over again. Like, it is so much about ease. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to perfect ease enough. It is about trusting so much that I do what feels good each day. That's all I need to do. There's a greater power driving the ship. And by relaxing and allowing and going with the flow, I'll get exactly where I need to be.
True. And I have to say, it also reminds me of, in your book, you talk about this example of being blindfolded and allowing, trusting, and letting basically your intuition help guide you.
Yeah, so the elders were communicating through Holly, and they're like, navigate your life like you're blindfolded. Your mind can't say, oh, we need to take a left here, we need to go right. You learn to navigate by your feelings. And so don't use your eyes, don't look at the outside world, what feels right. So I use that as a little exercise to.
Smart. I received a visualization from an intuitive that I am close with. And what came through for her right now for me is that I'm blindfolded in like a dark forest. And, at first I was kind of scared of that. I've thought about it and I'm like, but I'm going to be okay. And then when I actually read that part of your book, I felt so much better because it was like, I have all the tools within me. I will be totally fine. And that's actually for me to continue to practice those tools. And to me, the way you put it was a much lighter, more positive spin, and then what I was imagining in my head. So thank you.
The elders said be blindfolded. They didn't tell me it was in a dark forest.
I was told I was barefoot in a dark forest in a white nightgown. So.
But I think it's such a simple for life, isn't it? In general, is that when we're here, when we come here, we forget our soul contract with ourselves. We forget all about the stuff that we know. And we do have to almost blindfold ourselves from life so that we don't forget. That's where we find who we really are, right? That's where we can remember it because we're not going to be confused by all the outside noise. So it's a really good symbol, I think.
I do too. And I'm really appreciative that you put it in that way. And it's so simple. Again, another really like just the meditation we just did was simple. This analogy is simple. These are things that people are going to remember and use every day.
And the signs, that's something that Robin and I are like so passionate about right now. To go back to what you were saying before, it's like fun, right? It's fun to look for them. And yes, are we going to see them every moment of every hour of every day? No, of course not. Because then they wouldn't really be signs. Right. We would kind of take them for granted, right? You almost need that moment where you're like, holy shit, can you believe this? And then you get that affirmation that it's real, just like you did. Right. And that's when it's powerful.
Even when I come to, our discussion today, a lot of times I'll pretend that my inner child or my younger version is here with me because he brings the excitement, the fun that maybe as an adult I've forgotten.
Oh, I love that. In the Bible, they say, don't hide your light under a bushel. It's that inner light. I love that. I try to remember that all the time because at our essence, we are that light and we're always just trying to hide ourselves, right? So that people won't judge us or look at us in our truth. And so we paint ourselves with that ego to try to hide it away. And we always got to go back to that inner child, which is the light.
True. It's all about the feeling and the energy. I mean, that is underscored, I think, in everything we talked about today. Thank you for being courageous enough to share your story and then share all that you've been learning. So thank you for following your path.
I'd be lying if I didn't say a little bit of it was scary. What's been very encouraging is that people I never would have guessed are like, I love it. It's helping. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and you are, in quotes, a normal person who had this spiritual awakening.
You are them, right? You don't have to become a spiritual guru of any sorts to have the same level of a spiritual awakening that you've had. And I think that that's what people are going to love so much.
People can find your book, Clear Vessels, on Amazon.com. And they can also go to clearvessels.com to find out more about you and what you have going on. Is there anywhere else that they should check out?
I am on Facebook, Stephen James Hoffman 156. Also Instagram, Stephen James Hoffman. But at the website, clearvessels.com, I do have a blog. There's also a free guided meditation. There's a free chapter reading. So poke around there if you're interested. And
thanks, Steve.
Oh my goodness.
This was fun.
It was really fun.
Thank you so much.
You followed your intuition.
Thank you for letting me into your lives.
All right. Talk to you. Bye.